Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we're learning Ketubot page 77, which discusses that there are 24 different subcategories of someone who is a mukashchin, literally someone who has boils. And it says one of these categories, and the absolute worst of all of them, is someone who is called a bali rasan. There's something which affects the brain, in which they're actually living creatures, insects that affect the insides of the brain, and it obviously causes tremendous amount of pain and illness. And on this, the Talmud tells us, when it came to these illnesses, specifically the Bali Rasan, it was posed by Rabbi Hanina and said, how come in Babylonia, in Bavel, we don't see any person that has this illness? No one has this physical sickness of Bali Rasan. But everywhere else in the world, we do see it. On this, he says, it's because if you study what the people there do, what is their lifestyle in Babylonia, in Bavel? First of all, they eat these special leeks, they eat these special turnips, and they drink literally this special type of drink. And because of that, they don't develop this illness. Furthermore, Rabbi Yochanan asked, how come no one gets literally leprosy? Loosely translating the word saras. How come in Babylonia no one has this illness? And he says, it's the same thing. Because of what they eat. Again, they drink this shechar, this special type of drink. And also, they bathe in the Meparat, in this Euphrates River. So we see something very phenomenal, that when it comes to physical illnesses that took place then, a way of making sure, or at least minimize, or in this case, to prevent it completely, one needs to be careful back then of what they ate and what they drank, and also to make sure that they bathed and they were cleanly, they kept themselves clean. And by being clean, it avoided this potential illness of this skin disease. And maybe, even though this is over almost 2,000 years ago, this is talking about, this is really something that pertains to this day and age. We know that there are so many different illnesses in the world, and we don't often talk about them. But we know that a lot of them, unfortunately, you can just get because one's mazel. But at the same time, there's a lot of illnesses and sicknesses that are preventable. And the Talmud here is telling us not necessarily to eat turnips and to drink shechar, this type of beer or some type of a concoction, or to go to this river. But the point is, there are ways to avoid certain sicknesses, certain illnesses. If a person is careful of the foods that they eat, if they're careful about the drinks that they put into their body, that can make a very significant difference. And we are all familiar with this, that when it comes to looking at the ingredients of the foods that sit on our shelves for months and months and months with preservatives and all these other additives, we know that these are not necessarily the best things to put into our body. But we also have to realize that it's not just that it doesn't necessarily mean it's so good for us. It could really cause major life-threatening illnesses. And just like the Talmud is telling us here, that we could prevent all these terrible neurological illnesses of this thing that happened into the brain back then, and also all these different skin diseases that they had, we could also minimize and do our part to prevent certain illnesses if we were only just a little bit more careful and guarded and watched our health.